All right, ready in 3, 2, 1. LaNorris Sellers versus Diego Pavia is going to be must-see TV in Columbia week 3. It's Chris Muller and Corey Burton on a Locked On crossover. Let's get it.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? That was some groovy music right there. I might try to get that for my own intro. But welcome into a Locked On College crossover. I'm Corey Burton from Locked On Vandy, and joining me, fresh from his move and big life accomplishment of getting engaged, it's Chris Muller of Locked On Gamecocks. Congratulations, dude. What's going on?
Yeah, man, it's been a wild week. I got engaged. We moved to Baton Rouge for my job, and then I lost my voice. So, which I think is like probably something that a lot of people were hoping would happen a long time ago. So yeah, I'm excited to do the show. You got to have to carry this like for both of us.
Hey, it's all good. I think Diego Pavia might carry the matchup in it. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to talk about that here. But first, I'd be remiss if, well, actually, we don't have a presenting sponsor on this one. So this is going to be a fun episode, man. We got a lot to talk about. Diego Pavia versus LaNorris Sellers in Columbia. That's going to be the epic storyline from this matchup. Diego Pavia was named to the Maxwell Award watch list. Dylan Stewart, I think, is going to be a major factor. And, of course, the road environment. Everyone I talk to that is a former player in the SEC, they tell me the hardest place they've ever played was Williams-Brice, and they love it. And then, of course, the impact of this matchup, all of the implications behind it. And then I looked on FanDuel to see if there was a line. There's no line yet. So
not yet, no.
We can't pick it on the line, but we can kind of give our prediction. It's a 16.
What was the line last year?
The line last year was
6.5.
Yeah, 6.5 in favor of the Gamecocks. So, and they blew that out of the water. So, but yeah, so this game, I think, is going to be very, very special because in last year's matchup, it was very disappointing, Chris, because I thought the game got off to a really good defensive start. It was tightly contested back and forth, and Vanderbilt just fell apart. And you could see exactly where they dropped off. They have, their depth, that's where their depth ended. And that's kind of where everything faltered. So when you look at last year's matchup, I think if Vanderbilt had this year's roster, I don't know if they would have won because defensively South Carolina was outstanding.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been a lot tighter of a game, and I think that sets up this year's matchup. You have two quarterbacks who are going to be much improved with Diego Pavia and LaNorris Sellers, and two quarterbacks that I say play very, very similarly in their style of play and what they're good at and what they need to improve coming into this season. And I think both of these guys have intangible qualities that are on a whole nother level. And did Diego Pavia, like I said, made the Maxwell watch list? Did Sellers make the list?
He was one of the 89 that did. If he would have been snubbed from the watch list, I would have lost my mind.
That would have been, yeah. I kind of
my voice.
But yeah, there you go. You'd have lost your voice a lot sooner because you would have screamed about it a few days ago in the moving truck, like, what is going on here? But what are you most excited about with this matchup with the two quarterbacks?
So listen, I think when you look at South Carolina last year, like the win over Vandy is way more impressive than a lot of things that happened that year specifically because of how good of a job Vandy did against elite teams, right? Like they beat Bama. Not saying Bama was elite, but like beat Bama. They lose to Texas by 3, and they had like an onside kick late in that game. Like they were still in that game. South Carolina goes in and just kind of handles their business, and they got it was never really in doubt, like from the South Carolina standpoint. So this year, you get them at home. It's a great matchup. I love Diego Pavia. It's two guys that, as good as they are, you look at the numbers, and you don't want to just be like a box score warrior or whatever, but like you look at the numbers and it's like, my goodness, like I don't think people still understand statistically how great these two were last year. Pavia, especially not turning the ball over. So it's two guys that I feel like are at every turn still somewhat overlooked, not overlooked, but like dismissed about their talents. LaNorris, he's not a good passer. Pavia, he's not that good of a player. And you're like, have you guys watched them play? Because it's like at the NFL level, maybe, but at the college level, these guys are just pure winners.
Yeah, absolutely. And stats, I think, and I'm really big on this. And if you listen to my show, you'll know that I'm really big on this. But stats only give you so much of the picture.
Right.
There's always context. And my job, I'm not a huge stats guy. I'm the guy that's going to put context behind the stats. I'm going to take the stats and say, here's why it happened. Here's why this stat's important. Here's why this stat's not as good as it reads, or it's not as bad as it reads, right? Because I feel like all 800 yards of Diego Pavia's rushing came in huge situations.
Yeah, third downs.
Yeah, major third downs, big runs, situationally, extremely impactful in the running game. Accounted for 8 touchdowns there, accounted for 20 touchdowns through the air. I mean, just
4 interceptions.
And only 4 interceptions. And I think he had a couple of fumbles, 2 of them being in the South Carolina. I think he had 4 fumbles too. I think
when you
look against South Carolina.
Like LaNorris at the start of the year when he struggled so much and everything just clicked. And it was like I think he had 12 fumbles last year. I think 9 were lost, or maybe 6 were lost, or 6 were lost. But he had 12 fumbles. 9 of them or 10 of them were in the first 6 games. Like, just turned a corner. And like, you think about this too. Remember the beginning of the year, South Carolina played Old Dominion, and people don't ever talk about this game anymore because talk about the LSU game, they talk about like A&M, Clemson, all those big games like that. But they almost lost Old Dominion. Yeah. Vandy loses to Georgia State, and then both these teams were still able to like block out the outside noise and keep the thing.
Yeah, I mean, for Vandy, I think a lot of it came through Diego Pavia, and he was the linchpin, at getting those guys reinvigorated, getting those guys refocused, because they could have come out again. The next game was against Missouri, and they could have come out very easily on the road, laid an egg, and got shellacked by a top 10 team. Instead, they're doinked field goal away from winning that.
Double overtime.
Yeah, double overtime. There are two plays that would have won that game. If they deflect the pass to Luther Burden in the first overtime, I think they win that game, because that was Missouri's last best shot.
Yeah. By the way, Mizzou ranked 7th in the country at the time.
Yeah, 7th in the country, even better. There was a couple plays in regulation where I think if they make them, they win the game in regulation. But you follow Georgia State with that game, and that gives you a little bit of hope, and then you follow that with that massive victory against Alabama, where it felt like Vandy was in control pretty much the whole way, and Alabama just didn't seem like they had many answers. But to go on your point as far as like turning those corners, like, that's the growth, and that's those intangible qualities that we talk about. Like, Sellers understood. I guarantee you, Sellers, just like Pavio, that whole next week after Old Dominion for Sellers, went into the film room, went out to the practice field, said, you know what? It's over. This is what we need to improve. Let's go. And that's the kind of things you need out of your star quarterback. So I'm very excited about this matchup. I think there's a lot, and I think it's going to be a lot better as well, because from Vandy's side of it, the weapons around Diego Pavia are going to be better. You have a potential first-round tight end who's being mock drafted in the first round, actually, in Eli Stowers. And I wouldn't be surprised without knowing, they haven't announced it yet, but without knowing the Locked On Top 100, I wouldn't be surprised if Eli Stowers found his way on that list somewhere. And I don't know if Diego Pavia will be on that list. He'll be close, but Eli Stowers has to be on that list somewhere. But the weapons around him, even though there's question marks at the wide receiver, you got more talented guys for Vanderbilt. And the running game, getting MK Young, as Diego Pavia mentioned several times in several media appearances, that guy's going to be a special guy. So the weapons for Vanderbilt are going to be better. What about for South Carolina? What does LaNorris Sellers have around him? You lose Rocket Sanders. Is that like a big concern, or what do they got around him? Uh-oh.
That's completely set up yet. We're trying. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
My light's going out over here. We got all sorts of technical difficulties. Like, he was so big in that offense in so many ways, because he was a big back, but he caught the ball out of the backfield well. And in moments that you needed him most, like You look what he did against Mizzou and the way he scored on that 15-yard touchdown where he was just like not going to be denied. He was good between the tackles. He had breakaway speed. Like he was also a kid that was like had a lot to prove, which is like Boomer's done a great job of bringing kids like that into the system. And this one, he already had a lot of like production in Arkansas, but you bring in Faison from Utah State. You have to think the NCAA is going to let him be approved to play and like
have to.
He will be heard that he will play this year. The receiving room and like the pass catchers, they were pretty good last year. They were pretty good, but they were great at tight ends. Josh Simon, who I thought was like the second or third best tight end in the league behind Stowers. Nick Harbor, you hope that he is a guy that's going to finally like realize his potential and turn the corner. But for the first time, if he doesn't, you don't feel completely hamstrung and let down because it's the deepest receiver room they have had at South Carolina. I don't want to sound like I'm embellishing, but maybe in 20 years, like tons of 4-star freshmen, they're just very young.
Very inexperienced, yeah. So it's gonna be kind of fun watching them develop, and same with Vandy's receivers, and they've got a lot of youth and newcomers via transfer portal. So it's gonna be interesting to see kind of how they develop that over the course of fall camp, and of course in the first 2 games with Charleston Southern and Virginia Tech, who is an opponent that you and I share. So
That's right.
that'll be fun when we reconvene in week 3. We can compare notes about how we played against Virginia Tech. Hopefully, both of us coming off of a win in that matchup. But there's going to be a lot of implications as far as this defense. I think this defense is extremely, extremely good. And I just lost you there for a second. This defense is going to be really, really dangerous. Dylan Stewart leading the way, but we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about 5-Hour Energy. So stay.
I need one.
Yeah, stay tuned. All right, here we go. I'm going to do a little editing here, but all right. Talking about 5-Hour Energy Transfusion, Chris. You just moved. You just drove from Atlanta to Baton Rouge. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings bold grape ginger and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some of the days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you this. What's the wildest shot you've ever pulled off in playing golf?
Oh, man. I just remember how stupid I was when I was playing golf because, like, I started playing out of college after I had played baseball in college, and I was like a big dumb oaf. And my buddy was asking me, he goes, "Hey, so what do you hit your 8-iron?" And I didn't know that there were only 10-yard increments. I thought you were just, what's your favorite club and how far can you hit it? And then just adjust the levels. I was like, I don't know, between 160 and 220. And he's like, okay, don't ever tell anybody else that. That's a ridiculous statement to make.
Your friend's like, I'm never taking you to play golf ever again. So yeah, no, I had a ridiculous drive. I mean, it's probably the best drive I've ever hit. I cut off a dog leg on a par 5. It was like a 500, almost 600 yard par 5, and I hit this drive. If you look at the yardage to the green, it would have been like a 400-yard drive. But given the sharpness of the dog leg, it was actually not that long of a drive. I just hit it at the right angle and it got the right bounce, and I ended up making eagle on that hole. But I guarantee you I would have made many, many more eagles in that round if I had 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. So golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you may use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36. Get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, welcome back. It is a college crossover here. Joining me is Chris Marler from Locked On Gamecocks, and I'm Corey Burton, Locked On Vandy, and this is this is a crossover that I think is very, very fun to do, because I think these two teams are looking for some. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen. I hope you're making either Locked On Vandy or Locked On Gamecocks your first listen. We definitely appreciate that. This is a Locked On crossover, college crossover edition of this particular Locked On podcast between Chris Muller and I. Like I said, Locked On Vandy, Locked On Gamecocks. Please subscribe to these two shows. And if you need a third show, Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy is the place to go. He covers it like no other. And of course, the other 14 teams in the conference, the shows in the SEC are outstanding from top to bottom. However you want to shake it and bake it, it's great. Every show on this network from SEC perspective is phenomenal. So you should check those out. But anyway, talking South Carolina versus Vandy, Dylan Stewart is a name that just keeps popping up when I'm thinking about how Diego Pavia is going to match up against that South Carolina defense. And two scary things about this is Dylan Stewart is a bona fide NFL guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be a Sunday player as soon as he is eligible, probably a day one guy. If not, worst case scenario,
he'll be a top 5 pick.
Yeah. Absolute worst case scenario, round 2, but that'll never happen. He'll be a top 5, top 10 guy. So, and then the second thing is the road environment. Vanderbilt, it's a little dicey with handling the road environment. We'll get to that in a minute. But Dylan Stewart, man, like that dude is the ultimate disruptor.
Right.
Like, how's this defense built around him, and how do they take advantage of his skills and his disruptiveness?
So, like, I think one of the things that's the biggest question mark for me going into this season, I think Stewart's great. Like, he's clearly great. Former 5-star, tons of production. Like, not just like sacks, not just pressures, not like, tackles for loss, getting to the quarterback, but the fact that like he was able to get to be so disruptive, forcing fumbles, and like he was constantly in the backfield. But whether we want to not take anything away from him, it's a fact that he was probably benefiting a little bit from the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, Kyle Kennard, being on the other side of the ball or the other side of the defensive line from him. So with him being gone, somebody else has to step up. And I think the thing with it, like with South Carolina, that people don't realize is, fine, if you don't know who the starters are going to be and you're concerned about if they're going to replace all the guys they lost the NFL draft, I totally get it. But most people outside of Columbia didn't know those guys before last year. And it's not just plug and play or anything like that, but it is very much at some point give the benefit of the doubt to Shane Beamer for what he's been able to bring in. What Clayton White in his first 4 years, you're talking about 88 total forced turnovers, the most in the SEC. Like, they have been very consistent. So I'm hoping we're going to see the same and not like a sophomore slump. But the one thing he's also going to have to fight for the first time in his career is he's going to be the guy getting double teamed and triple teamed, like the focus of the offensive line. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, to me as a coach, my number one concern, my number one strategy is, all right, let's see if the loss of Kyle Kennard, let's see if that absence over there is going to affect him, and we're gonna pull right at him. We're gonna run right at him. We're going to go off tackle. We're going to run power, counter. We're going to run duo his way. We're going to force him to really play against the run and see how much of an appetite he truly has for being a run-stopping edge player. And so that's going to be the first thing I test. Yeah. And if he passes that test, then we're going to have to find something else, and we're going to have to find somebody else to attack. But I think, to me, when you have a player of that caliber, that's the first thing you have to do. You have to test him and his appetite to defend the run. And if he can do that, even throw in an extra blocker. Like, there was a play, I think it was against it was a home game. I can't remember exactly who it was against. I think it might have been against Alabama. Vandy lined up in I call it, it's like the standard gun wing T set where you have a tight end, a wing, and then you have two receivers split out to the field. And they had Cedric Alexander lead block. They just pulled the play side guard and kicked the end. They had Alexander lead, and they had it blocked up so well that Alexander led on a corner.
Yeah. And they had no answer for that all day.
They had no answer for that all day. And he led on a corner and absolutely destroyed him. And that's the kind of things that I'm going to see.
I want to say this for the 1,000th time, because I know I've said it a bazillion times to you and everyone else, but I feel like the casual fan still looks at that game and like, oh my God, yeah, like what a crazy upset, what a fluke. Vanderbilt lined up and beat Alabama, like up and down the field over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. There was
that
no
was not a fluke anyway.
Because if it was a fluke, because Alabama answered, right? Vandy threw the first punches, which in a lot of those cases, yeah, it's a little bit fluky when a team like that throws the first punch and you get down and you're like, okay, they threw the first punch, great, cute story, boom, we're gonna run over you, and Vandy just kept answering and kept answering and kept answering.
Third down, man. Third
and
down.
It was
9
insane.
of 13.
Yeah, it was insane, and they just kept coming, and no matter what Alabama did, Vandy took their best shot and delivered a counter. And that's what made Vandy what they were. That's why they were 7-6 with a roster that probably is the 16th best in the conference. If you look top to bottom with roster depth, probably by a not a terribly large margin over Mississippi State, but like over the rest of the conference, it was a pretty significant margin of like roster depth. But they vastly overachieved, and then they controlled Georgia Tech in the bowl game. Like, had it not been for a rain delay,
it was a very good team.
City. Yeah, and Georgia Tech was insane on offense. Like Haynes King being able to do what he did all season long after being a cast-off from Texas A&M was outstanding. So my point being is this: for Vanderbilt, I think they're going to year 2 of this offense, so much continuity across the board. Zach White, so much continuity across. Did I say that right? Zach White?
Yeah.
So much continuity across the board defensively. Like, I think these two systems have evolved and are going to evolve into, more advanced levels of, the reason why they create turnovers is because those guys understand what to do. He's a great
game,
and he understands how to attack, how to match coverages and pressures and fronts and things like that. Tim Beck understands, Diego Pavia understands how we're going to create movement with this offense. And I think that's a big factor. No matter what kind of experience you have, it's the coordinator pushing the buttons that has all the experience. And, okay, I know what buttons to push because I know what these guys can do, and I have guys that play specific roles. So that's what makes Vandy's offense so dangerous. So it's going to be a hell of a chess match between these two units. So,
well, you also bring in a new offensive coordinator, but he's very familiar, right? Like, he was on the staff last year. And it's also like the best on paper scenario you could have for breaking in a new guy as the OC, because not only is he familiar with everybody, he was on the staff last year as an analyst. You're talking about a guy that's like 40 years of experience in coaching leading up to this. So they should be still in good hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, initially I was like, oh, Mike Shula, that's not a great, exciting hire. But again, and then you go look at his resume, you're like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy's been.
Oh, I forgot. Like, we all thought he was really bad because he got fired from Alabama. But like, also, if you remember Alabama at the time, that was like one of the lowest points of that program.
Yeah,
when he took over, and they had like all of these, like, I think they were an eyelash short of the death penalty from the NCAA. There's like an actual article in USA Today.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, he did not succeed there as well as Saban is the guy that came in after him. But I mean, dude, look what he did with Cam Newton. And if there's a comp to LaNorris Sellers, it's been Cam Newton.
Mm-hmm. And then he goes into the league and becomes an assistant coach in the league, and there's that is a great training ground, and you like you said, great point with Cam Newton. You mentor. That's basically what you do is with an NFL quarterback. You mentor him. You don't really coach him too much, but those guys have. It's a totally different animal in the NFL level, but you get that experience of having a guy that plays like that, and they have a system built for him, and he's just going to enhance that and put his own twist to it. So that's also going to be a scary piece. But this game has a lot of implications, and we're going to talk about those implications. But you got to stick around to hear that. Boom! I didn't load the little things in there, so because they didn't load them into the crossover brand.
You're good, dude. You're good.
So
you're killing it. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, yeah, you bet. Thanks. All right, welcome back. We're wrapping up the show here. In the immortal words of the great Yogi Berra, it got late early. So it's a Locked On crossover. Chris Marler, I'm Corey Burton. Chris Marler, host of Locked On Gamecocks. Myself, host of Locked On Vandy. Very intriguing matchup. A matchup that normally in the past you would just skip over this one and say, it's a win for South Carolina. They're gonna, it's just gonna be another bloodbath. It's Vandy, blah 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 blah. Blah. But given the latest circumstances, even though this game was probably Vandy's most lopsided loss all season long, this game is extremely intriguing, and there's a lot of implications behind this game. There's a lot of, I don't know the right word to say here, but there's a lot attached to this game for both.
Riding on it.
A lot riding on it, and the impact of this game for both seasons are going to be extremely important, because for Vanderbilt, the biggest elephant in the room, in their locker room, is the 16-game losing streak. That is a heavy burden on their shoulders, and that weighs heavily in this matchup every single year, because there's things that pop up in these games that you're like,
yeah, you learn ways to lose.
Yeah, and like last year, I think the game was tied. It was 7-7. Vandy just got a really nice interception. They get it set up. They're like first and goal to go, and Pavia gets strip sacked and gives it right back. And South Carolina marches down and scores, and then the rest is history. 28-7 beat down, and it's stuff like that. And at some point, the streak has got to be snapped. And I think for Vanderbilt, this is probably the most loaded up they may be for a while. If they win this game, but the implications of if they win this game, I think your recruiting goes up, your brand goes up, your ability to pull guys from the portal goes way up. Like, everything about Vanderbilt is flipped upside down, and you're starting to think, okay, maybe this Vanderbilt team is for real. Now, for South Carolina, I don't think, as far as the streak goes, Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I think if you lose, I don't think it's as detrimental for South Carolina if you guys lose, because I think you guys are good. You guys are good enough also to really bounce back. And if you take an early loss, I don't know that it's as backbreaking for y'all as it would be for us, because it's just another notch in the streak, and it's another. I think it knocks Vandy down more than it would South Carolina.
So I get what you're saying about like the Vandy part of it, and I like that makes sense for Vandy specifically. What I will say is, if South Carolina loses to Vandy this early in the season with everything they still have on the schedule, massive ordeal. Because now you're starting to question like, well, what was going to happen? Like, we came into the season, we thought it was going to be different. We were going to try to make for a playoff spot, and like all of those things are still open and still available to you, but like they can become much more difficult. And I think they going into a situation where like the rest of your year is now riding on. We got to be perfect. We got to be perfect, and so that would be very, very tough to do.
Does it put like a mental block on your performance to lose at home? Like, does it affect you more losing home games versus road games? Because
I think
your environment.
I think that like losing at home, especially against like not in a bad way about Vandy, but you're expected to win this game. And like that's, so I think that like last year, like the Bama game is the reason we still talk about it, is that was the first time they beat them in 40 years. So like, I don't know if South Carolina players know about the streak, or it's like a point of pride and they talk about a lot or anything like that. Like, but I do know that if they lost this game early, sure, the first 6 games, like there's not a ton of like landmines around there, but the back half, now you've left yourself no mulligans. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's important. And from a confidence standpoint, I think it would probably, I have to think it would rattle you, because Williams-Brice is such an iconic place as far as difficulty, that I feel like it would have a little bit of a psychological effect to it. But a question that I've always been curious about, Chris, is like early season South Carolina, under Shane Beamer especially, Spurrier to a certain degree, some years, but it feels like every year South Carolina starts slower than any other team, and I don't understand how do y'all start slow every year?
It was like a lot of times in the past, part of that's because they had Georgia game 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, you're not wrong. Like, again, last year, the Old Dominion game, they were 3-3, and they were coming off a loss to Ole Miss, so they got boat raced. So, yeah, it's been a problem. I think that they've struggled on the road before last year. They were really bad on the road. So you got to figure out a way to continue to like they were 2-10 in road games in the SEC under Beamer going into last year. They went 3-1 with the only loss being a 2-point loss to Bama. They've got to figure out a way this year to make sure there are no surprises and no games that they're supposed to win that they lose, because like I said, the back half of the schedule is the part that's supposed to be very, very difficult. And if you waltz into that with limping like you did last year, you saw it with the committee. I thought that they should have been in the college football playoff, even though they had 3 losses. This is the way they closed the year. That is not really on the table as we saw a year ago, right? So you cannot just assume, well, it'll still work out. This has got to be right out of the gates. You got to come be on your best. I think that the biggest concern with all of that too is LaNorris has to be his best.
Mm-hmm.
This team will go as he goes. There's still a lot of talent around him, and they're not going to have to he's not going to have to be Superman every single game. But man, if he starts like he did a year ago, then you're going to have a lot of concerns, because last year might have been expected in year 1 as a starter. This year, not so much.
Yeah, this year it's because he's being billed as the top quarterback in the SEC by a lot of analysts, including yourself, which I've referenced your list several times in that regard. Which you're the
I had
only
Pavia
one
at 3, right?
Exactly. You're the only one I feel like is properly rated Pavia. I think Chris Doring had him at 5, and I was cool with that too. But anywhere in that top 5, I think for Diego, because he's produced in the league.
There's so many new starters. People got so mad about that list. There are so many new starters, and it says going into the season. Listen, I think Arch and DJ Lagway are probably going to be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Kill me for it, but I just am going to go with the guys that I saw do it on the field in the SEC already.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give them my vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And until those other guys prove differently, that's the way it's going to be. Now, Arch Manning could come out and light the world on fire and be the number 1 guy. And that would be totally justified. And that's why you do a preseason list, a midseason checkpoint, and a postseason list.
You get yelled at for all 3.
Yeah, and those lists are supposed to be different. If they're still the same, then a lot of teams have a lot of problems. So, but given this matchup, the impacts of this matchup, preseason, pre-camp, what are your thoughts on how this one's going to shake out?
So here's the biggest thing going against Vanderbilt. They are not going to sneak up on anybody this year. So I love the confidence. I love how brash Diego Pavia's been. He is a great story for college football. I also hope that somebody that followed suit with what he started with, the suing the NCAA, Russell Faison, is going to be able to actually be cleared by the NCAA, and he will be also playing in this game. But I'll tell you what, man, I think this team is going to be built different this year. I think the biggest thing for me is I'm not taking anything away from Vanderbilt, but I'm going to be a little bit dismissive, I think, because I expect South Carolina to win this game. But I want to see things in this game that Vanderbilt's going to do and do very well, that they're going to see later in the year against other opponents, and how they're able to react and defend that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that's very valid as well, because it's a home game for South Carolina. That is a really, really nightmarish place to play. You got sandstorm. It's going to be an early evening game.
So hot.
It's going to be hotter than you know what, and it's going to be electric. And in this game, because Diego Pavia said he circled it on his calendar, it's going to be electric, and that's what you want. You want that game. If you're Vanderbilt, you want that to be electric. So, to me, this is a totally different Vanderbilt team, even from last year. A lot more depth. It's earlier in the season, which, given at this point, and until I see differently, and until I see this Virginia Tech South Carolina game, until I see that and see how they respond, I'm going to go with the fact that South Carolina just somehow, and I don't think it's going to be LaNorris Sellers struggling, but I think just things around him are going to struggle. Systems around him are going to struggle a little bit, enough to where Vandy can just punch through and snap the streak. And
I did not see that coming.
come on, Diego Pavia is my quarterback. You know how I got to copy his brass. But I think you're going to see a really, to me, and I said this on my show, and I think you're going to see a really good quarterback duel between Sellers and Pavia. I think those guys are going to be the stars of the show. And I think it's going to be Vanderbilt's going to make one more play in this game to punch ahead. It's going to be like a 30-27 type game, 35-30, 31 type game. One of those, like, it's just going to come down to like the last moment. Somebody's going to make a play. Eli Stowers is going to make a huge first down to ice it or get in field goal range. Brock Taylor's going to kick it through. And I think you're going to snap the streak because Vanderbilt is due. And why not, for Diego Pavia's sake, why not just get it done on the road? Because that's just one more thing he has left to accomplish.
I asked you to do the show with me tonight because I lost my voice and I needed somebody to help me get through this, not only emotionally, but physically. And this is what you do to me. This is what you do to me, Corey. Listen, guys, I like trying to play injured here. I can't do it. I can't tell him with my voice. Roast him in the comments. Roast this guy in the comments. Listen, I love the Diego Pavia story. I feel like I have been way more vocal and I think he's not just like a novelty. He's a really good team. It's a really good team a year ago, and love the story. There's no chance they walk into Williams-Brice Stadium with with the way this offseason's gone, the way last season, and what's at stake for South Carolina. There's no chance that they are going to walk out of there with a win.
We'll see. That's my pre-camp. That now we could go into we could revisit this week 3 and it could be a totally different.
Wait to have a voice.
Yeah, you'll have a voice. We'll be able to go back and forth. It'll be a lot of fun. But guys, subscribe Locked On Gamecocks, subscribe Locked On Vandy. The comment section should be extremely fun on this one. That'll be great. But it's going to be a great matchup nonetheless. Massive respect for what Shane Beamer's doing over there and what LaNorris Sellers is doing there on a serious note. And like I said, I expect this game to be nothing short of amazing and live up to the time slot that it's going to be built into, which I think if both teams are coming in 2-0, I think you're going to get the ESPN 6 o'clock Central Time matchup or 7
Dude,
o'clock.
that entire schedule release was so stupid because it was just like 7 of the 11 or 12 games were just flex. So
yeah.
But it's gonna be a good game, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be, and I never thought I'd say that about a Vanderbilt.
Yeah, eat your heart out, Jefferson Pilot. Good for you.
3 days, let's get it. Anyway, well, it's been fun, man. Locked On College Crossover, Locked On Gamecocks, Locked On Vandy. Subscribe, however you find your podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you back. We'll reconvene week 3 and we'll see kind of where we're at post camp, post matchup with Virginia Tech, because both of us play Virginia Tech, and we'll reconvene and see where we're at. But until then, behave yourselves. Enjoy your move. Enjoy Baton Rouge, Chris, and we'll talk later.